Do you hear that? Ghosts and goblins running around, children's laughing and playing above the town, witches cackling and eating sweets, monsters growling and giving out treats. Stay a while, my friend, for this is Tales from Around the Campfire Halloween special. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Tales from Around the Campfire, the Halloween special. Yes, how are you guys? Hopefully, you guys are having a really great day today. Listen, I don't wanna keep you guys from, going around the town, or dressing up as your favorite creatures, monsters, or ghouls, or even witches. Which is, you know, it's a time to be anyone else who you want to be, just for one night. Just for one night. And so, we're gonna be reading a couple stories. Oh, by the way, the gameplay that you're seeing right now, it's of me playing Junkenstein's Revenge again on Overwatch, and it's because, okay, listen, I'll without taking any more time, I want to apologize because I didn't come as prepared as I wanted to be. Okay, jeez. And oh man, I was just trying to find a game where I can find a good campfire. I didn't want to put Dark Souls because that or Bloodborne because that would be too easy. I just, damn, I missed my opportunity. So hopefully you guys enjoy the gameplay and also these stories that we are about to play. Not play, but read up a bit. You know what I'm saying? So here we go. We're in a website called AmericanFolklore.net, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yes. And here, there's a bunch of categories on top. United States folklore, Mexican folklore, Canadian folklore, tall tales, myths and legends, ghost stories, and all that stuff, right? But for right now, we're gonna be reading. Let me see. I saw this one right here. It's like a poem, right? This one's called "The Skeleton Thief," I believe. It looks like a game. Preparations cut out. Okay, well, anyways, the story and treasure hunt. Read the poem below to start off the treasure hunt. Then show the treasure hunters the place where you hidden the first skeleton footprint. Instructions to the hunters to find all the footprints, which will lead them to the skeleton's ball and stolen cauldron of candy. So, if you guys want to follow along, here we go. The Skeleton Thief by S.E. Scholzer. I do apologize. A rattle of bones. Who could it be? Is it a skeleton? Looking to see if that cauldron of candy we left in the hall might make a good feast at the skeleton ball. A rattle of bones. Quick. Look and see. Oh no. The skeleton stolen our candy. Follow the footprints. Uncover the clues. Find out where the skeleton and his crazy crew have taken our cauldron of candied delight. We must save our feast on this Halloween night. Indeed, we don't want, the dude to be, stealing our candies. Here we go. This other one's called "The Lady in the Veil." Excerpted from Spooky Texas, retold by, yet again, S.E. Scholzer. I do apologize if I am reading this wrong. But yes, so all credit goes to him. He had not expected to meet the woman of his dreams, but there she was, strolling along the moonlight beside the cemetery. Carlos quickened his pace until he was level with her, hoping for a glimpse of her face under the veil. Carlos made a few remarks about the beautiful night and the lovely weather, anything to keep her talking. She stopped abruptly, turned to face him. He caught a glimpse of dark eyes glinting behind the veil. "What is it that you want?" she asked. "A date, señorita. Just a date." Carlos beamed at her. She paused and said, I don't know. Ask me again in this place at this time tomorrow night, and we shall see. Carlos Carlos's heart leaped out of his chest, so she was playing hard to get. Well, fair enough. We would see her tomorrow, and then she would fall into his arms. The next day dragged by for the infatuated Carlos, and he had the trouble of concentrating on his work. But at last he was free and running the few blocks to his home to change into a suitable outfit. He could barely contain himself, and he reached to the cemetery a few minutes early. She was not there yet, so Carlos entertained himself by picturing his beautiful bride in their new home. Suddenly, she was there, in front of him. The moonlight sparkled off her veil. Carlos was enchanted. They talked for hours, standing in front of the grave. She was witty as she was beautiful, and Carlos begged her for a date. We will go out tomorrow night, she said, and I will send you a letter with the place and time. Carlos kissed her hand and floated away, so happy, so he wanted to sing for joy. Carlos was absolutely useless at work the next day, and after work he rushed home and found the letter in his mailbox. Eagerly he read it, not pausing to wonder how she knew where he lived. Then he ran next door to show it to Diego, his closest cousin. Diego went pale, and when he read her signature, Rosa Gonzalez, this must be the same Rosa that died in a car crash last year. Diego tried to warn Carlos, but Carlos was already in love. That night, as Carlos hurried to the cemetery, Diego followed, certain that his cousin was in over his head. Carlos bounded over to Rosa. At last, we go out, he cried to her. But first, my love, show me your face. At his word, Rosa pulled aside the veil. Back at the gate, Diego gave a gasp of shock, for she had the desiccated face of a skeleton. He was frozen to the spot by the power of the evil specter, unable to warn Carlos. Looking down, Carlos only saw the glamour the ghost was projecting. As the skeleton's withered arms trapped him, the veil on his eyes was lifted, and he realized in one heart-stopping moment the abomination he was kissing. The ground opened up, and with a laugh of triumph, the specter pulled him down and down into her tomb. The earth closed over Carlos and Rosa. Diego, freed from the ghost's spell, ran into the cemetery shouting for his cousin in terror. But it was too late. Carlos was dead, locked for all time in Rosa's arms. Wow, that is romantic and spooky, right? I don't really know. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna read this other one. It's by the same person, retold by the same person. All right, it's a Texas ghost story called Amber. Here we go. Oh, you hear the stories about how dangerous Ouija boards are, but hey, it's just a game. Mary waited until midnight to begin our little game, and the four of us, Sarah, Jesse, me, Mary, started by asking all kinds of silly questions. It was a strange looking board covered with letters and symbols. There was a plastic pointer that was supposed to move across the board at the behest of the spirit. The instructions called it a planchette. Around 1:30 in the morning, the planchette suddenly froze in Mary's hands. It wouldn't move, no matter how much we pushed and pulled. Mary turned her frightened blue eyes towards me. "I'm not doing it," she said, lifting her hand. I grabbed the planchette myself and tried to push it around, but it was fixed on the board. Suddenly, a kind of electric shock buzzed through my fingers. I gasped and tried to pull my fingers from the planchette, but they were stuck. Mary and Jesse both tried to pull my fingers away, but nothing happened. The other girls stared with wide and round eyes, as the planchette came alive under my fingers, which were still fixed to the surface, and began to move. Help was the word spelled under my hand. Help me, help me. The planchette kept moving back and forth between the HELP constantly until Sarah cried out, "Who are you?" Amber, the board spelled. "My name is Amber. I'm 8 years old." "What's wrong?" Mary asked. Her face was so white, all the freckles stood out like darkened H spots. "Water, danger, help, scared." The board spelled out as fast as my hand could move. "Call 911, Mary cried suddenly. "Quick, Amber is in danger." By this time, Sarah was gasping into the phone, and then she hung up the phone. "They wouldn't listen to me," she told us, almost in tears. At an instant, my hand was suddenly free from the planchette. "She's gone," I gasped. "See if you can contact her again," Mary said urgently. "We need to know if she's okay." I picked the plastic planchette again. "Amber, are you there?" I asked softly, afraid of what might happen. After a long pause, it moved slowly across the board and spelled "too late." And after another long pause, "water flood, drowned, Mobile, Alabama." The planchette stopped. I knew that Amber was gone. None of us got much sleep that night. In the morning, we rushed through breakfast and then looked at the Alabama news and the internet. None of us were surprised to read that there has been a flash flood the night before. I read the names of those who had died in the flood. One of the victims was an 8-year-old girl named Amber. Wow. So well, I don't get that though. Was she dead, or was she about to die? Oh man, there's so many questions in that story. Like, was she psychic? I mean, that has to be the only explanation that I can think in my mind. Because if she wasn't dead, how else would Amber call out to her? You know what I'm saying? Oof, that's something else. Here we go. Where we are looking for some other one. Before we move on, I want to say thank you guys for coming to the Halloween special. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are having a really great day today. And hopefully you guys are going to have a great Halloween tonight. Trick or treat and candy is in our future. So hopefully you guys have a good one as well. But listen, also be careful, right? Be careful with what you eat. Check your candies, check everything you get, because there's some people out there who are just mean. All right. And also, please, if you guys didn't listen to when I was saying about the phones and the driving, listen now, because like I said, it's Halloween and there could be kids running around in the streets, and there could, an accident can happen. Not only you can get hurt, but you can hurt others. So please put down your phones, pay attention on the road, and be careful. All right, for this night special, it's Halloween, baby. You gotta live it up. This one's called Jack-O-Lantern. From I guess the book Spooky Maryland. After a long day of unlucky hunting, I found myself stuck in the middle of the marshlands for the night, without a flashlight or a lantern to guide my stumbling steps. So I settled beside a fallen log to rest until daylight. I tossed and turned. I recall a story my great uncle told me about a ghost that haunted the marshlands. There was once a man named Jack, who was a nasty fellow. He beat his wife and kids and was an all-around bad chap. Jack got worse and worse as the years rolled by, but finally Jack's body got too worn out that he died. He went up to heaven, but St. Peter refused to let such a wretched fellow in. Then he went to hell, but the devil barred the door as soon as he saw Jack coming and wouldn't let him in either. "Go away and don't come back," the devil told Jack. "How am I supposed to get back in the dark?" Jack grumbled. "Give me a lantern." So the devil threw a chunk of molten fire at Jack. He took it from the land. He took it for his lantern and went back up to Earth, where he wandered forever through the swamps and marshlands of the earth. A bitter spirit whose only delight was in luring the unwary to their doom with his lamp. At this juncture in my musings, I happened to look out over the marshes, and noticed a blinking light in the fog. "Is that you, Jack O'Lantern?" I called jovially. "Jack, Jack, Jack," a voice whispered back. I was suddenly spooked. I clutched my gun to my chest, the hairs on the back of my arms standing up at a wit's end. Had that been an echo of my voice, or was somebody out there with me? "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to sound brave and menacing. "I have a gun around. Show your face at once." "Jack, Jack." The voice hissed from a completely different section of the swamp. A light blinked on and then off, and then on and off. Shudders ran up my spine at the sound of the ghastly voice coming from nowhere. I huddled up against the log, waiting for something firm to come back. The story of the jack-o'-lantern didn't seem so funny. My heart was pounding so hard it made my chest hurt. I strained my eyes in the silence that fell over the swamp. "Jack, Jack, Jack." The voice hissed from somewhere on my left this time. The light blinked on and off. I counted 10 heartbeats this time before it went off. The voice sounded closer. I held very still, my instinct screaming at me to hold my breath and not move until the menace had passed. The voice came again, far off to the right. "Jack, Jack, Jack." It hissed. The light came on and off, on and off. Moving away, I thought, relaxing just for a bit. There was a long, long, long silence. Nothing stirred, nothing in the wind in the grass, not the frogs or turtles in the water, not the crickets or night insects. "Jack, Jack, Jack." The voice hissed softly right into my ear, and I looked up in the glowing red eyes and twisted face of the jack-o'-lantern. I screamed and lashed out at it with my gun. I ran a few steps, tripped and fell over, knocking my head into a sharp stone. For a moment I saw stairs and felt blood pouring from my scalp. But the jack-o'-lantern was right behind me. I had to get away. I rolled and fell into the deep pool. I plunged underneath the water, flailing desperately against the rope-like grass and tried to keep me down. My head finally burst out of the water and gasped desperately for air, treading water as best as I could with the trembling limbs and aching head. I heard the creature laugh in the mist. "Jack, Jack, Jack." The voice hissed delightfully, and the light blinked on and off, and right and on the right of my head, blinding my dazed eyes as horror filled through me and froze my limbs, so I couldn't no longer swim. For a moment, the grotesque face and red eyes of Jack-o'-lantern loomed out into the mist, and before my petrified gaze, my head started to swim in with pain from a bleeding skull. The evil face above me, lit by its bright light, whirled around and around, growing dimmer as my eyes started to glaze. I was vaguely aware, and I should keep swimming. Keep trying to make my way to the edge of the pool, but the effort was too much for my sudden heavy limbs. I barely noticed myself plunging down and down into the watery depths of the pool, too stunned by my injury to fight my way to the surface a second time. Then there was only darkness and silence, and a voice hissing in cold triumph. "Jack, Jack, Jack." Well, that was good. The marshlands, huh? It's very spooky. Yes. Do be careful when you're out and about, you know. So we are going to read one more, because I don't want to keep you guys here for a long time. I want you guys to have fun, go out and have fun. I found one right here that looks interesting. Okay. Alright, here we go. This last story is called The Shrouded Horseman, a Wisconsin ghost story from spooky Wisconsin and retold by the same person.
How is it you've barely broken a sweat?
When the Civil War ended, Jeremiah Jones found himself a free man, eager to make a new life for himself. He made his way north to Milwaukee. For several years, he worked odd jobs until he earned enough money to buy himself a big white horse and a dray, a low flatbed wagon without sides. Shortly thereafter, he was hired on as a drayman with the Philip Best Brewing Company. Jeremiah began his delivery rounds, greeting everyone with a cheerful smile and a joke that delighted the brewery customers and earned him a good reputation. Jeremiah quickly earned enough to buy property out on the outskirts of town, where he built a beautiful little cottage. Once he was settled, Jeremiah decided it was time to marry. He had his eyes on a pretty girl named Lucille. Her parents were surprised by the match, but quickly resigned themselves to the situation, not wishing to alienate their only daughter. But for Lucille's brother James, that was another matter entirely. He thought that Lucille had married beneath her, and he hated the former slave for stealing his sister's heart. Lucille left her parents' home forever in the dray drawn by the large white horse, and she never set foot in the part of the city again. She and Jeremiah lived happily, simply but happily, in their little cottage by the woods. 3 months passed when Lucille returned home early one evening to find Jeremiah lying dead in the puddle of blood in the floor of the barn. His face was battered almost beyond recognition, his arms and legs broken in several places. Half hidden under his leg, she saw a silver pocket watch, one that she had last seen attached to the waistcoat of her brother James. The white horse and dray had been hacked into pieces. Lucille's brother had fled the city by the time the sheriff arrived at his home to question him. A warrant was put out for his arrest, but James was nowhere to be found. Lucille put the cottage up for sale and left town. No one in the area wanted to buy the house, thinking that it had been tainted by such a brutal murder, so it remained empty. And that was that, until one evening at dusk, when the phantom appeared in dray drawn by a glowing white horse. A driver was a tall figure wearing a gray shroud that whipped and flapped under the force of the invisible gale. The spirit of Jeremiah Jones had returned to avenge himself upon his murderer and would not rest until he found him. Okay, about 6 months after the sighting began, James, the murdering brother, returned to Lucille's house. "Lucy," he called. "Lucy, I'm back." James staggered around the yard, having fortified his courage in a local bar. Suddenly, he spied the phantom dray craning down the road with the shrouder figure standing in a seat, cracking his long whip furiously. The white horse was wild-eyed with fury. It picked up speed when it saw the man who killed its master, and it gave a scream of anger and stopped Lucille's brother in his tracks. The ghost snapped the end of the whip around James's legs and pulled him off his feet. Then the horse and dray drove right through him. James gave a sort of gasp and flopped into the ground, dead as a mackerel, with a look of sheer terror in his face. Wow, that one was pretty good. All these stories, I will be putting them down in the link. There's going to be a link in the description below, so you guys can read more of them. American folk stories, United States folk stories, Mexican folk stories, Canadian folk stories, tales, and all this stuff. Yeah, there's a bunch of pretty good things in this in this website. But that story just reminds me of how I don't really like how brothers, like the brothers of a sister, um, like they get too. How can I put this? They start acting like the father, you know? Like if the dad already gave me consent, homie, you need to step the hell off. You know what I'm saying? You're just her brother, you know? Uh, there's a Netflix movie called something tall grass or something like that. I can't remember, but it's a Stephen King's adaptation movie, and it has that same type of brother that I hate. Oh my god. But we're not gonna get into that because, like I said, it is Halloween. It is a day to be happy, merry, and spooky, of course. So, thank you guys for coming. I really do appreciate it. And so, as we feel the night wind chill our bones and walk these streets where they used to roam, the moon will be bright as day, so we can have more time to play. Go around to each door asking for trick or treat on this little town where we will meet. Until the next one, have a safe and wonderful Halloween. Peace out, everybody.